Alright, so we're checking out the Foxeer Aura Lite long range 5-inch frame, and this is actually the bind and fly version. Foxeer, they've normally been in the camera area and sometimes the antennas, like for example this antenna here, the new Lollipop, also some video transmitters, but now they're getting into more motors and flight controllers, and of course now they have bind and flies. So just basically in a nutshell, they're pretty new at putting together bind and flies. I think they're a little bit inexperienced, and it shows in the build that I got here. It's a bit unpolished. So for example, my GPS wasn't working. It was using some wires that were plastic coated, and one of the wires was broken. I'm not sure when it broke, so obviously they didn't work. I moved the GPS from the back here. Normally it's in the back here behind, and I moved it up top, and I seem to get better reception for the satellites up here. When it was down here, I was getting at most 6 satellites, and now when it's up here, I moved it up. Up here, it now gets 12 to 14 satellites pretty regularly. So I did have to make some modifications, cleaning up the build a little bit. So what you see here is not what the customer is going to get. I did make some modifications. Now they have a whole lineup of new frames and motors and bind and flies. I obviously only have one to show you here. There's a whole bunch of other ones. I don't know if I'll be getting those or plan on getting those. If there's something you want to see a review on, let me know in the comments and I can make a request on that. But of course, if no one's interested, then I'm not going to bother because I have plenty of other things to review at this time. The frame you can buy obviously by itself, and this is what the frame kit looks like. It comes with all the TPU parts and battery straps, and the T700 carbon is nicely packaged. I have not built this one. I might give this one way later. I don't know. I'm not really sure. I might build it. I haven't really decided yet. The layout of the frame is like an H-style frame. It's not an X-style frame. So the arms are a little bit where it attaches are a little bit more forward instead of more central. They're, I believe, 5mm arms. It's a pretty standard type of setup here. You have a staggered bottom front, or the bottom plate here goes to the front is lower, and then the one that goes in the back is higher where the vista is. So it's a kind of a typical setup where it's sandwiching the arms. Got your side plates for the camera. On the bind and fly you do get the Foxeer. This is the Apollo camera for DJI. If you get the DJI version, you get the Vista. And if you get the analog version, I believe you get an analog Foxeer camera. I don't remember which one it is. But they have different SKUs for the different models. There's a 5-inch long-range frame, a 6-inch long-range frame, I believe a 5-inch standard frame. And they're all called Aura or some variation of Aura, which, yeah, it's a little confusing. They could use better names, but that's what they've chosen to do. But yeah, again, go check out their website and let me know if there's any other models you want me to take a look at. But for this specific one, it comes with a DJI system, Vista, Foxeer Apollo camera. I've got the new Datura 2105 motors on here. So these obviously Foxeer, Datura 2105, and it's a 2105.5 stator, and this one's a 1650 kV. And these are the new motors that have the M3 shaft. I'll show you that here in a second. The all-in-one flight controller here is the Reaper all-in-one, and they did send me a sample of that as well. I might put this to a future build. So it's an F7, I think a 745. It has like 3 UARTs that are accessible. One's going to the DJI, and then on this build here, one goes to the GPS, and then another one goes to the receiver. In my case, I have an Express LRS receiver, but pretty standard board there. There's no pad for LED, which is surprising. The motor pads are kind of tiny, but they're meant to be soldered on the side. So if you look at their build here, you can see that they solder the motor wires on the side of the board. So that's fine. There's nothing particularly amazing about this board or particularly bad. It has all the standard features. Got current sensor. It's got black box, I believe, OSD, MQ6000, etc. I think the ESC, the ESC is like 45 amps. It's only a BLES, and it is 2 to 6S. Another thing I modified on mine is I swapped my XT60 for an XT30 because while they did give me the 6S version, I did request the 4S version, but they sent me the 6S motors. I decided to just go ahead and run on 4S anyway because I wanted, as a long range build, I wanted to use like a lithium ion pack, like this 3000 milliamp hour pack. And the kV is a little low for 4S. You do have to put about 50% throttle to maintain your cruise at the 1650 kV. So the other kV is available as a 2950 kV. So that was I think a little high. So I would say, like, if you want to get this for long range cruising, 2950 is fine. Run a 4S, put a motor output limit in there to drop it down a bit. I would say 75% or so. Obviously, with this lower kV motor, I'm not doing that because it's actually too low. But it's enough to cruise around at about 50% throttle. Now, they call this a freestyle frame / long range frame, which means technically it can do both. Can do flips and rolls, that kind of stuff, but it wouldn't be my first choice for a freestyle quad because it's got the smaller, lighter, more efficient motors. The whole frame is basically lighter. Everything here is screaming efficiency. So it's kind of like, if someone asks me like, oh, can I race a Prius? Prius is made for efficiency. Sure, you can race a Prius. Will you win any races? Probably not. So yeah, that wouldn't be anyone's first choice for a Indy car racer. Is not the Prius. This is kind of like the same sort of example. Yeah, you can freestyle this, but I don't, or you could race it. I don't think it would be your first choice as a freestyler or a racer. That's just my opinion on that. As a cruiser, it's totally fine. It did not come with any kind of pit tune out of the box. So again, this shows Foxeer's inexperience in putting together binding flies. Yeah, they kind of just soldered all the parts together and sent it out the door. There's a little bit extra work that needs to be done to configure it. And so out of the box, if you fly it, even on 6S, it has a lot of wobbles and stuff. Because it's just basically whatever the defaults are for beta flight. It isn't tuned at all. So that being said, I just went ahead and flew it on 4S, and I put in some higher PIDs to obviously run it on 4S, and it flies fine. You see some footage here of me just cruising around. It's got a little bit of wobbles because of some wind, but for the most part, if your intended purpose is to use this as a long-range cruiser, totally fine as a frame. It seems to do the job no problem. And you can put a GoPro up here. It can carry like a Hero 8, whatever, full size, no problem, because it has, the motors are powerful enough to carry the lithium-ion battery and the GoPro, and you can cruise around, no problem. All right, so I want to talk a little bit more about this motor. So it comes with this new M3 shaft, which is, I think, something that FPV Cycle started as a trend. And I'm not sure if anyone else is doing the M3 shaft yet. There's the M2 shaft that RCN Power, I guess, started about a year ago. I have a video from like January of 2021 with the M2 shaft. But, the thing is, like, you need special props for those. You need props with the 2mm hole. And then in this case, for the M3 shaft, you need props with the 3mm hole. Granted, you can use a standard prop with a 5mm hole. If you use the adapter that was on here, it basically just threads on like so, and it turns the M3 into an M5, and you can use your standard props that way. Now, I'm not really sure if there's much benefit to that because, I have some other motors here. Might as well show you in this video. I've got this RCN Power 2105 motor. It's actually the same stator size, 2105.5. But it comes with the standard M5 shaft, and they both weigh the same. So they both weigh 21 grams according to the specs on both pages. So, similar motor. You can go with the M3 with the special M3 prop, or use a standard 5mm prop with this adapter. So I'm not really sure what the benefit is of going with the M3 shaft, because if you can see with the same motor here, it's the same size, 2105.5. It weighs the same, but you can just use standard 5mm hole propellers. Now, it might be that some of the propellers, like the ones with the smaller hole, might be lighter, but there's not enough of these around for me to make any sort of judgment about that. So I might be mistaken about this. I don't know of any other manufacturers that make the props with the 3mm hole other than Foxeer. That's the only ones I could find so far. So if you want to go with this setup here and use the M3 shaft without the adapter and the 3mm hole propeller, this is the only one here, and it doesn't really weigh that much less than any other props that look similar with a 5mm hole. So I'm not exactly sure what the benefit of this is, because you don't seem to have a weight benefit. It's 21 grams with the 5mm shaft versus the standard 3mm shaft here. And then, you can always go down to even, like these T-prop with the 2 holes, something like this. This is another new motor from RCN Power. This is their 2104. And then they have a version of this with the M2 shaft. So, yeah, obviously there's a lot of these new kind of motors coming out with different prop options. But I think the issue right now is, while the motors are out, there might not be enough props. It's kind of the chicken and egg thing, so I guess we'll have to wait and see if there's more props to come out before people start adopting these kind of specialized motors, and if that'll gain any popularity or not, I don't know. But if it doesn't, then maybe these motors, these types of motors will stop being made, and then of course the props will go away as well. So again, whenever you have a new sort of form factor coming out, it's a chicken and egg problem. You're not really sure if it's going to take off or not. Alright, so that's enough about the motors. I just want to cover a little bit more about the frame, which is kind of unusual and different. It's got this sort of silk coating on here, and you can see how the light reflects off of the, I guess what pattern is etched into this particular carbon. This is special T700 carbon. Obviously, can't really tell you any difference in terms of the strength, but yeah, I mean, it looks nice. The carbon, the frame itself seems okay. It has a different kind of a look. Whether or not it's going to be durable and crashes, can't tell you because I haven't crashed this one. But if you're getting something like this for long range and you're trying to freestyle fly it at a bando and do some bando bashing, I don't think these arms are going to survive that kind of abuse. They are on the skinnier side, so something you ought to be aware of, and it would not be my recommendation to take this bando bashing anyway. This particular setup here, this is mainly for long range cruising, getting kind of cinematic type of video. Well, that's going to cover it for this video. I probably played some flight footage already for you. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Talk to you guys in the next one.